I never thought I'd be saying this, but Max Verstappen might genuinely have a shot at winning the 2025 championship. And I don't even think that's a ridiculous take at this point. For some reason, the RB21 has transformed into a completely different machine post-summer break. So much so that it's starting to remind me of the RB19. Like, look at this, man. I haven't seen Max pad his car like that since Abu Dhabi 2023, which could be a sign of Red Bull now having a car capable of beating McLaren on a consistent basis, because there's never been any doubt over Verstappen's ability. Give him the tools and let him do the rest. And especially against those McLarens, he's like the boogeyman, haunting them every single weekend. Even when Red Bull don't have the outright pace to beat them, he's always there, lurking, waiting to pounce. And now, a door of opportunity might be on the horizon. The thing that separates the best drivers ever to everybody else is their ability to perform under pressure, to capitalize on the moments where their rivals falter. The true greats are defined by their clinical execution, operating at a level of precision so sharp it almost feels inhuman. Suffocating consistency that punishes every single slip from their rivals while giving nothing in return. And those moments when it truly matters the most, the GOATs enter another dimension, rising to the occasion better than anyone, standing head and shoulders above the rest of the grid. That's what separates a guy like Max in this era of Formula 1. He doesn't give you any quarter. And in order to understand why Verstappen is such a massive threat, even though he's still 69 points adrift, we need to talk about his competition, the McChuckle brothers. Watching them fumble so badly in Baku was genuinely hilarious. Starting with Oscar crashing in qualifying, which presented Lando with a golden opportunity to do some serious damage to his championship lead. But in traditional Norris fashion, this guy decided to choke when it mattered most, putting his McLaren in an astonishing P7, only 2 places ahead of his title rival. And you know what the funniest thing about that whole situation was? It's not Lando bottling for like the 6th or 7th time this season. It's actually Oscar's reaction to his teammate completely fumbling the back. The goal has never been more open. This was literally a tap-in, an uncontested layup. Yet somehow, he failed to go faster than any other driver in Q3 apart from Isaac Hadjar. At this point when he made the mistake, he was better off just putting it into the barrier, bringing out one more red flag and finishing the session with Sainz on pole. Now, to be fair to Lando, McLaren sending him out first was a big disadvantage. The track was only getting drier, so obviously the last man over the line would have the best of the conditions. Maybe they didn't want to risk getting caught out by another red flag, but it gave Norris the worst chance of setting a competitive lap time. Furthermore, the McLaren has proven to be a tricky car to drive in such conditions, even more so on high-speed tracks. It's still obviously very quick, but we've already seen, like Hungary for example, when the wind picks up, it really does affect their car a lot more than others, which contributed to both of their drivers struggling. But seeing Piastri trying not to laugh was so jokes, man. Bro could not believe his eyes. Unfortunately though, the Australian decided that one bottle wasn't enough for the weekend and said, you know what?
I got 2 more for y'all.
Because this man not only jumped the start and went into anti-stall, causing him to fall to dead last, he then proceeded to just drive straight into the wall at turn 5 and kick his feet up to watch the rest of the race from his phone. And quick side note, that race was so boring from that moment onwards, I would rather have seen it from this POV, watching Oscar watch the race. Maybe he wanted the Leclerc experience, but let's not even talk about Ferrari in this video. This DNF for Pastry was one of the most embarrassing moments I've seen from a championship leader. That sequence of events was an all-time howler from him. But once again, Norris was gifted with another opportunity to gain some points. With your teammate and title rival completely out of contention, how will you respond, Lando Norris? Well, for starters, he lost a place to Hadjar at the start. Then, his safety car restart was actually so stinky. It's like he wasn't even aware there was a race going on. Like, look at this gap between him and the car ahead. No game sense whatsoever. My man was not enough behind the wheel. After that, Leclerc ended up getting past him, only making his life even more difficult. But you know what? Never mind. At least McLaren can help him gain some positions through strategy and a good pit stop. Right? At this point, I'm convinced that team is not real. They can't be a serious organization. This whole weekend was just a mess. Multiple opportunities squandered through poor execution. And you know what, right? I make jokes. But in all honesty, what did they do with Oscar Piastri? Because that was not him. I don't know whether they switched his brain out while he was asleep, put something in his food, or whatever. But this is not the same driver that we've seen over the course of this season. He's been so consistent, staying out of trouble, racking up the points. I just don't know what happened to him this weekend. Maybe someone told him to do it for the plot, to make this championship more interesting, but he now can't afford another off weekend for the rest of the season. Plus, that pressure from Max is going to be diabolical, because fighting for a championship isn't new territory for Max Verstappen. He's already been in this position multiple times before and succeeded. The only difference with this year is that he has absolutely nothing to lose. The RB21 has been quicker in the past 2 races, given that they're much stronger on tracks with low downforce. But still, McLaren should not be getting beaten by Mercedes, Williams, or VCarb of all teams. Like, what were they actually doing? They better be so careful these next few races, because Verstappen is not letting anything slide. With the current form he's in, I have no doubt he will leave absolutely nothing on the table and give everything right until the very end. Even Andrea Stella thinks this man is a genuine threat for the championship now. And I don't know if that's him not rating his drivers, Max being GOATed, or Red Bull unlocking more performance. Well, it's probably a combination of all those factors. But the fact that he's even spooked by just 2 races from these guys winning just goes to show that there is a chance, however small. On average, they need about 10 points per race over Piastri to seal the deal, which to me actually sounds very doable, considering there are 7 races including 3 sprints, and the fact that McLaren don't really have the same advantage as the first half of the season, which is exposing all of their other weaknesses. The improvements Red Bull have made to their car have been quiet, steady, but extremely effective, particularly their floor. They've been chipping away at finding performance for months. But the major breakthrough they've had recently has put them as arguably the favourite for most of the remaining races. Typically they've always gone well on front-limited, high-speed tracks, and Monza is the best example of that. Verstappen pulled up, set the fastest lap ever, and then completely blew everyone out of the water in the race. All the while, McLaren were busy playing the Fairness Championship behind him. Then in Baku, from the moment the weekend started, Max and Red Bull were just on fire, making all the right calls throughout a tumultuous qualifying session filled with unpredictable weather and tricky gusts of wind, and allowing Verstappen to do what he does best. While everyone else was either hitting the wall or making mistakes, he was just there, locked in, complete flow state. The only other guy who I'd say was just as good and deserves a recognition is Liam Lawson. And I would say maybe Sainz too, but he set his lap before the track conditions changed for everyone else. Nonetheless, managing to convert that front row into a podium was very, very impressive. And his former Toro Rosso teammate, who was once a teenage prodigy, has now evolved into the most complete driver in Formula 1. This season, he's been phenomenal. Japan is arguably the best performance of the year, beating both McLarens at Honda's home race with that gorgeous livery Red Bull had all weekend. Clutching up when it mattered in qualifying and not putting a single foot wrong in the race to win was legendary, a champion's drive. But the other 3 wins we've seen from him in 2025 have also been very special in their own respect. The overtake on Piastri at turn 1 in Imola, and totally dominating that race from lights to flag. And then the past couple of weekends, even after losing the lead at Monza, quickly getting back past Norris was crucial to controlling that race. And then from there, driving off into the sunset. Baku was the continuation of that momentum, doing a ton of damage to Piastri's championship lead. In the past 2 races, Verstappen has closed the gap from 104 points to now 69 points. These papayas genuinely can't afford a single DNF for either driver, because if Max gets within striking distance, I've got my money on him winning it all. And it must be said as well, Red Bull have been formidable over the past 3 races. Every weekend, they've maximized their results with Max, finishing P2 in Zandvoort, albeit at the expense of Lando's DNF, and now back-to-back wins. And what's really made a big difference, according to their new team principal, Laurent Mekies, is a few factors. One is upgrades. Unlike last year, Red Bull actually brought a specific low downforce spec car for Monza, which really helped their performance. Then on top of that, they have been so clinical operationally, something that's not been so consistent ever since the Horner situation erupted in early 2024. That change of environment with him now gone seems to have benefited them, helped them refocus, and get back to their best in every department. Pit stops, car setup, strategy. It's all working like the well-oiled machine we've come used to seeing from them as a team. And I genuinely believe that Mekies having a technical background has empowered the engineers to trust their intuition more and listen to their lead driver. Like in Monza, where Max asked them to trim the rear wing even further. Pierre Vacher was against this initially, but with a guy like Mekies now in charge, I can imagine he was probably like, we've got nothing to lose, so might as well try. Well, it paid off big time for them and unlocked new levels of performance thanks to Verstappen's feedback. That weekend was a real team effort, because providing good feedback is one thing, but being able to implement the necessary changes to reflect that feedback is something else. And credit to the trackside engineers for getting it right. As much as some want to claim that Max is driving a tractor, there is a team behind the scenes that have worked incredibly hard to get the RB21 into a much stronger position. Apart from a couple of races this season, like Bahrain and Hungary, Red Bull have been competitive at every race. They've had either a podium-worthy or race-winning car since the start of the season, depending on track characteristics. Tracks that typically have very long straights and high-speed corners, they can run less drag compared to everyone else, mainly thanks to how great their floor is and has been throughout this regulation period. Red Bull thrive when it comes to aero efficiency, maximizing downforce for cornering grip and minimizing drag in a straight line. They're able to maintain a good ratio that allows them to run a slimmer rear wing to other teams, while still maintaining strong performance in low to medium speed corners. And after their new floor upgrade as well, they now have a better operating window, which makes optimizing the car throughout the weekend much easier. Now, the real test as to whether this championship can really be turned around is the next race in Singapore. The track characteristics there will heavily favor McLaren, so Red Bull will need to hope for a miracle. But given how great they've been as a team since the summer break, I'm sure they'll find a way to pull something out of the bag. But other than that, the remaining races will be very interesting. 3 sprint weekends, mostly high-speed tracks with Mexico, Vegas and Abu Dhabi having very long straights. So based on what we've seen from Red Bull in recent races, they're definitely well positioned for the final 6 after Singapore. And what's crazy to me as well is how much closer it could have been were it not for a few key flashpoints. What if Max wasn't taken out by Antonelli in Austria? Or had he not lost his head in Spain or spun in Silverstone? Those were 2 errors that have proven costly, although to be fair, they thought the championship was over at that point in time. Plus, when McLaren are bottling so much, you can afford to have a few off weekends. And I find it really fascinating how fast fortunes can change in Formula 1. The first half of the season was very up and down for Red Bull, and Max had a number of great pole positions, best placing himself to beat the McLarens in the race. Especially on tracks with low deg, qualifying has been very important. However, he'd often lose out for various reasons. In Jeddah, it was Piastri who stopped him from winning after getting the better start. In Miami, the Red Bull simply didn't have the race pace nor kindness on its tyres that the McLaren did. In Silverstone, they opted for a dry setup by fitting a skinny rear wing, which ended up backfiring in the race. Had it not rained, he likely would have been on the podium at the very least. And in Japan, he did very well to win from pole there. But also, the low track temperatures on Sunday played a crucial role in keeping degradation to a minimum, which neutralized McLaren's biggest advantage, which has been tyre wear. However, more often than not, he struggled to convert those pole positions into victories due to McLaren's superiority on a race day. Although in recent races, there has been a pretty big shift in momentum. Whether they can keep that up remains to be seen. Zandvoort is a track that didn't play to their strengths, and yet Max was still best of the rest. And on tracks that do suit the Red Bull, you give him the car and you genuinely will not see the guy. Another factor that's helped is their increased reliance on trackside information to improve throughout the weekend. Simulators are great, but they can't mirror the exact behavior of what happens to the car in variable conditions at the track. Again, coming back to Monza, the team added more flap to the front wing to counter the increased rear end stability from that extremely trimmed rear wing. Verstappen was adamant that he can make it work and proved it by sticking on pole and dominating the race. They used similar reasoning in Baku as well, and it worked a treat once again. Being able to run a smaller rear wing than their main competitors has enabled them to gain a lot on the straights, while simultaneously having enough downforce through the corners to not lose too much time through the middle sector. And with a driver like Max behind the wheel, he really makes a big difference in being able to feel the limits of grip and lean on his natural talent. Nonetheless, you still need a car that's compliant and gives the driver enough confidence to push. I read from an article by Mark Hughes that Racing Bulls have operated this way for most of 2025, and look how successful they've been. The approach Mekies has instilled within both teams has proven to be fruitful. He doesn't get involved directly in setting up the car, but more so improving the feedback loop between the drivers and engineers, which is huge in today's Formula 1, where optimizing performance has proven to be difficult. But on the whole, this season has only added to Verstappen's already incredible resume, and he's proven time and time again that he is the best driver in the world right now. His brilliance cannot be confined solely to the numbers. They do tell part of the story, but they don't fully capture the essence of what it feels like to watch him in motion. What I personally think makes him so great are the intangible assets. The characteristics you can only pick up by simply sitting there and watching the dude hustle a car. How he leans on the absolute limit of mechanical grip. The audacity to make almost impossible late-breaking moves look so effortless. Those devastating qualifying laps where he leaves nothing to chance. And the way in which he manages a race to perfection like no other. Every time he climbs into the cockpit, you get the sense that you're about to witness something special. And then he delivers that so consistently, you begin to expect it. Of course, he's not perfect. Every now and then, he does have those moments where he just sees red. He'll push past the limit of patience, or the car, or even his own control, proving that he's still human. But those moments are outliers. Tiny cracks in an otherwise indestructible wall of brilliance. Most of the time, Verstappen is unshakable, and that is what terrifies his competition the most. His ability to extract the maximum, not just from himself, but from the team and his car on such a regular basis is otherworldly. And when it comes to his mentality, he is an animal. Winning isn't enough. He has to dominate his opponents so hard that they're psychologically left confused, bewildered, and even broken. That is the relentlessness of Max Verstappen. And it's why he's the best of his generation and one of the best of all time. When McLaren emerged as the class of the field earlier this season, many thought that his run of dominance might finally come to an end. Yet, even when the car hasn't been so competitive, he's always been there, ready to strike. And ever since Red Bull finally began to unlock the potential of the RB21, so far, it's been like lighting a match in a room soaked with fuel. The effects have already been felt by the opposition and are pretty frightening for them. And McLaren's mistakes have only made that threat even more ominous. Piastri for most of the season has displayed his cool, calm, and collected nature, but he's also shown that he's still not immune to the effects of pressure. While for the most part he's been very solid, he can be a bit shaky from time to time. Norris, meanwhile, continues to prove that he's unable to seize control when the door swings wide open. Against a lesser rival, maybe they'd get away with it, but not against Max. With a guy like that, no lead is ever safe. So, could we see a title comeback from 69 points down? On paper, it does seem pretty absurd, but stranger things have happened. Would I be surprised if he claws it back? Honestly, no. Because after seeing what he did in Brazil last year, I've genuinely not ruled anything out of the realms of possibility. This is Max Verstappen we're talking about. And if there's anyone who can turn around a deficit as big as the one he's facing, it's him. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you think about this topic down in the comment section below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you're new to get my latest videos in the future. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.